I think that's important as well.
It is important. Well,
I
obviously,
do have a call here.
Oh.
Your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
We're going to have to switch subjects, I
Will not
think.
be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Lyle,
Hi, Mark.
how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
And where are you calling from?
I'm here at RJJ Donovan in San Diego State Prison, the only one in the county.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is Lyle Menendez, who is calling in. As kind of a set, you're getting Lyle, I thought it was important at a place like CrimeCon, where people have obviously got an interest in your case and Erik's case, and that we're pending a habeas corpus right now in California. One of the things that I thought was interesting, people talk about your case, and we've got a number of minutes, I think, but we're being recorded, ladies and gentlemen, so you understand. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, you've been in custody now, what, almost 35 years?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And you're now, how long has it been that you and Erik are at the same location?
About 7 years now.
Wow. And you've basically been there since 2005, since your last appeal, without any hopes of ever getting out. Is that a fair statement?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. A life sentence with very little hope.
Yeah, what we call life without parole, LWOP. And the reason I bring that up is that you've done something that I thought nobody would really know about outside of the prison system, and it's called the Green Spaces Project. Can you talk about that for a second?
Sure. So, doing life without, I had a choice of just sort of sit around and watch.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, maybe you find yourself getting into trouble or just doing nothing productive with your time. And I just wanted to do something more than that. And so I wanted to try to see if I could be part of this movement, this solution to rehabilitate prisoners. It started about 15 years ago, California Corrections, and I think the whole country realized that this sort of punishment model of corrections, treating prisoners as should be just punishment, was just causing prisoners to parole, commit more crimes, not adjust to society, and come right back. So both the taxpayer and just sort of criminal rights groups just felt like, and even victims' rights groups felt like we have to do something different. So they started education programs and classroom programs to try to change guys' lives so that they could become better neighbors and succeed. And the problem was that the prisoners were struggling. In my lived experience here, I found that one of the reasons they were struggling is that their physical living environment was sending them a very opposite message. The way they had constructed these prisons and the yards was so harsh and oppressive that it was sending them a message that they were irredeemable and these classroom lessons were not really real, that they shouldn't buy into that. So I got together, formed a group, and asked the governor's office and the warden if we could get permission to redesign a prison yard so that it reflected that rehabilitative mission, turn it into an actual community space through installing grass and trees and outside classroom areas and walkways, and not to make prison more fun and more less a sentence, but to create a sense of community so that prisoners could learn to function in a sense of community, almost like a campus, and that they might be more open to changing their life. And those principles are kind of well-founded in Europe and Norway. Norway kind of leads the way in that regard. And so for the first time, we're going to be doing that on a prison yard in California, and we've sort of already begun. It's all paid for through outside funding, public donation.
So I have a question for you. I'm coming to visit you this month for a very special occasion. Can you tell them what it is? I believe June 20th? No, not what you think, Laura.
Oh, June 20th, right. That's when I get my bachelor's degree in sociology at UC Irvine. It's the first time that a University of California university has partnered with corrections to have a very small graduating class. I managed to earn my way into it, so about 23 incarcerated guys will be graduating on June 20th, so it'll be exciting.
So I have a question for you, and it's kind of I know it's almost like an infomercial, but the habeas corpus that I filed and with Cliff Gardner, my trusty appellate guru, was about a year ago. Is that right?
1 year, just about a year, yeah.
Yeah, about a year ago. Before that, you had virtually no. Like I had mentioned before, your appeal had expired in the Ninth Circuit on the habeas back in 2005. So for the last almost 20 years or 18 years, you had no hope whatsoever. You've started the Green Space Project. You're now going to graduate with a degree this month. Why would you do any of that if you were an LWOP prisoner with no chance of getting out?
Well, it's something I felt like, that every day counts, and I just felt like I had to make a decision. Life sort of asks you a question: what are you going to do with your life? And I just decided, even though I'm incarcerated and there isn't hope of freedom, I still have a chance to be a productive person and sort of feel like I'm proud of what I'm doing with my day. And so education seems like an obvious answer to that question, and then doing something with that education and doing something with that time. And I was accepted, getting this bachelor's allowed me to apply and get accepted to a really rare master's program at California State University, so I'll be getting a master's in urban planning, which fits well with what I'm trying to do on the prison yards. And I don't know, it makes all of my elderly aunts very happy, so there's that. And it's productive, so I'm enjoying it.
Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't let Laura ask a question. If she asks something I don't approve of, you suddenly can't hear the question, okay?
Well, and we're showing your photos here. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a surprise to most of us that you're able to make this call. You're making history here at CrimeCon, and we want to thank you for this opportunity. And if this bid is successful,
When it's successful.
Can you please tell our audience what you plan on doing if you do get this chance to be released? What will you and your brother do?
Well, I'm hoping that I've had these discussions with corrections officials who are in charge of letting formerly incarcerated people return to the prisons to do good work, and they are definitely open to and would like me to continue to work on this idea of transforming prison yards so that it creates living environments and communities that produce better neighbors when they.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So I hope to do that, and then I probably will, as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, I've had talks with Rosie O'Donnell about creating a foundation where we would go and try to speak to those kind of forums and those groups and help in that space. It's an area that I've spent a lot of my time in, forming groups in here with, as you're probably aware, a lot of the prisoners had difficult childhoods and come from difficult circumstances. And so I've formed groups where they can more confidently talk about that. So I'll probably continue those two things. So that would be exciting.
So I'm going to ask another question that's kind of a twofer. So a lot of times what people will say to me is, okay, I understand it. If your dad had molested you, I can get that I understand the taking action with your dad, but not your mother. I hear that all the time. And I'm not going to have you say anything about that right now, but I'm going to point out something. Who is your Aunt Joan?
Joan is my mother's sister.
Okay, and she's your mom's older sister, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Aunt Joan did I don't know, most people don't know this. We did what's called a conditional examination. How long ago was this? Maybe within the last 120 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Aunt Joan, who was Kitty's older sister, because she's over 90 years old, technically it's over 70, I think, in California, you can do in a criminal case what's called a conditional examination, which is basically a deposition. So we did it in my office. The district attorney was represented. She spent an hour and a half talking about why she believes that her nephews should be out, that they've done enough time, that they have truly remarkable transformations. It brought tears to my eyes, I'll tell you, because the level of forgiveness, understanding, and just mercy, I think, was mind-boggling to me. And she still wakes up every day, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, with her most fervent wish is for you and your brother to visit her up the 101 highway where she lives from where you two are staying. Is that fair?
Right.
You know, one of the other things people don't know is we now have, and we will be filing very shortly, a letter that's signed by how many relatives of Kitty and your father? 24?
I think it was about 24 to 30, yeah.
Yeah, virtually the entire family on both sides have signed on to a letter. As victims in California, they've got a right. There's been some recent legislation in California, all asking that these two gentlemen be resentenced. It's always been my position that if these two mugshots you were looking at if they were the Menendez sisters, they would not be in custody right now, and that there's been a sea change in the 20 years, 30 years since then. In fact, I often tell this story. Lyle's heard it, so you can listen to it one more time. At the exact same time they were being tried and defended by a friend of mine, Leslie Abramson, in their trial, I was in trial on a murder case, and my client was a woman in Pomona, California, which is one of the toughest jurisdictions in LA County. And her name was Yoshi Kale, and she was charged on trial for murder of her husband, and then she tried to commit suicide and failed. She was acquitted of the murder and ultimately sentenced to probation for a manslaughter because I was able to use battered woman syndrome. What people don't remember is in the Menendez, I always call them the boys case, that they tried to use in trial number 2 the same doctrine, and it was actually ruled upon that did not apply to abuse of children. Isn't that wild? That shows you where we were back then.
The world has changed so much. And Lyle, while we have you, I know we only have a few minutes, and if you're just joining us and you're walking in the room, we are experiencing a collect call from prison right now with Lyle Menendez, who is joining us right here on the CrimeCon stage. And I want to ask you, Lyle, because I always close my interviews with this, is there something that you want this audience and the world to know? We have you now. This is a very rare opportunity for you to share something, anything at all, that you want to tell us.
How about that for putting you on the spot?
You have 60 seconds remaining.
That's quite, that's quite a showstopper.
Right. I would just express gratitude to so many, really, just an enormous number of people around the world and around the country who have written my brother and I, or have visited the Facebook page that I created for victims to express themselves on through my family's help, and just express gratitude for their support, their belief that we should be given a second chance because we don't have the ability to write everyone back like that. So we're grateful, we're humbled by it, and we appreciate it. And we hope for the best.
Yeah, it's going to happen, and it'll happen
And also,
soon.
Mark, a shameless plug. It is funded by the public, so greenspace-project.com has a big website on this project, and they can come and see what it's all about and donate. So we can plug that.
Thank you. And that was it.
There it goes.
Look at that, the plug, and it's done.
Yeah. Wow.